that are coming back with another video, and it looked like Kevin Stefanski cannot keep Shedeur Sanders' name out of his mouth, bro. You've been gone for some months. Why are you still talking about Shedeur? Oh, I know why. You need the clicks now because you got a bad NFLPA rating that came out. Guys, for this one here, we got to go down to Atlanta, and we're going to jump right into this story, man. So if you guys don't know, I reported on this early this morning that players from the Cleveland Browns voted on Kevin Stefanski as a coach.
As promised, what did Kevin Stefanski have to say about Shedeur Sanders? Again, pardon my take, Barstool Sports.
I would say this. I love Shedeur. I loved coaching him. Seriously, he's got the right makeup for this game. He was wired the right way. I wish that we won more, obviously, but if you saw how he played down the stretch, I mean, he's a young player that's getting better. I'm not coaching him anymore, so I know I have to be careful about talking about other players, but I am rooting for him.
Shedeur gets sacked this preseason because he didn't want him to start. What was up with that? Why'd you do that?
I would say this. I love Shedeur. I loved coaching him. Seriously, he's got the right makeup for this game. He was wired the right way. I wish that we won more, obviously, but if you saw how he played down the stretch, I mean, he's a young player that's getting better. I'm not coaching him anymore, so I know I have to be careful about talking about other players, but I am rooting for him.
Shedeur Sanders isn't just playing the NFL. He's rewriting the rules. And what happens next could change everything. All right, guys, welcome back. And I want to make something very clear right from the top of this video. So, don't skip a single second of this video. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Let's begin. All right, let's get straight into it. This moment right here, this is not small. This is not random. And it is definitely not just a coach saying nice things in an interview. Because when I heard those comments, my first reaction wasn't surprise. It was disbelief. Not because Kevin Stefanski praised Shedeur Sanders, but because of when he chose to do it. See, timing in the NFL is everything. Careers swing on it. Narratives are built on it. And this praise didn't come when Shedeur was fighting for reps. It didn't come when he was sitting, waiting, grinding, trying to prove himself. It came after the firing, after the grades leaked, after the damage was already done, and that's what makes this explosive. Because let's call this what it is. This isn't about one interview clip floating around social media. This isn't about headlines or hot takes. This is about power dynamics. This is about who gets to control the story and when they decide to tell the truth. Think about it. For weeks, we watched a young quarterback exist in limbo. Not named publicly, not defended, not committed to. Silence when it mattered. Silence when confidence could have changed everything. And now suddenly, love, praise, wired the right way. Right makeup. Rooting for him. That's not growth, that's revision. And NFL fans know this pattern way too well. We've seen it with quarterbacks who weren't ready until they were gone. We've seen it with players who were projects until they succeeded somewhere else. Coaches go quiet when decisions hurt someone, then get loud when the consequences show up. This is that. Because if you truly believed in him, you don't wait until you're off the payroll to say it. If you truly thought he was wired right, you don't spend an entire month pretending he doesn't exist. You don't let questions hang in the air while a kid absorbs all the doubt alone. And that's why fans should care right now. Because this isn't gossip, it's a turning point. This is the moment where people start asking uncomfortable questions. Not about Shedeur, about the decisions around him, about how narratives are shaped, about why accountability always shows up late. This league loves to rewrite stories after the fact. To clean them up, to soften them, to act like things were always headed this way. But the truth is, moments like this leave scars on confidence, on development, on trust. And the most telling part? None of this needed to happen. The praise could have been said earlier. The belief could have been shown louder. The support could have been real when it counted. Instead, we got silence. Then, applause. So yeah, this isn't just an interview. This is the crack in the surface. The point where fans stop listening politely and start demanding receipts. And trust me, once you really look at the context, once you look at the timing, once you look at who benefited and who didn't, this story only gets heavier from here. Because the next question isn't what was said, it's why it was never said before. Let's slow this down for a second. Because If you actually look at where Shedeur Sanders stands right now, the reality is way different from the noise. Strip away the clips, strip away the opinions, strip away the agendas. What you're left with is a young quarterback who entered the league with limited reps, massive expectations, and zero margin for error. That's the truth. Shedeur wasn't handed a clean runway. He wasn't dropped into a stable quarterback room with a clear plan and patience baked in. He walked into a situation where every snap felt like a test, every mistake felt amplified, and every good moment somehow came with an asterisk. And that matters, because quarterbacks develop in environments. They don't develop in headlines. They don't develop in Twitter debates. They develop through trust, reps, and clarity. And Shedeur got almost none of that. Look at the depth chart dynamics. Veterans cycling in and out, mixed messaging week to week, 1 foot in the future, 1 foot stuck in the past. That's not how you evaluate a young QB. That's how you keep one guessing. And while all that was happening, the same coaching staff making those decisions was quietly being graded by its own players as the worst in the league. Dead last. That's not a media take. That's not fans being dramatic. That's the locker room talking. So when people ask why Shedeur didn't look settled early, or why the growth didn't feel linear, the answer isn't complicated. Stability matters. Commitment matters. And he was competing in an environment that never fully chose him. And here's where the disconnect really shows. The media talks about Shedeur like he's constantly behind schedule, like he's supposed to already be a finished product. But inside the locker room, the energy was different. Teammates wanted him on the field. Players believed in what he brought when he finally got the chance. You don't vote the coach out like that unless frustration has been building for a while. We've seen this before. We saw it with Jalen Hurts early on. We saw it with guys who were questioned not because they lacked talent, but because the situation around them wasn't aligned. And then, once things stabilized, once the evaluation became honest, everything changed. Shedeur isn't asking for excuses. He's not asking for sympathy. He's not asking for a guaranteed starting job. What he's asking for, and what any young quarterback deserves, is a real evaluation, one that isn't clouded by politics, mixed priorities, or fear of short-term optics. That's what makes the expectations around him so unfair. He's judged like a top pick, treated like a fringe option, and evaluated in fragments instead of full games. That's not development, that's survival mode. And yet, through all of it, he kept showing up, competing, waiting, taking the hits when his name wasn't even being said publicly. So no, Shedeur isn't behind. He's right where young quarterbacks land, when the environment doesn't match the potential. And once you understand that, once you really see where he stands, the conversation shifts. Because the next question isn't whether he belongs. It's what he could have been already, if the situation around him had actually believed it first. This is where the excuses fall apart, because once you line everything up, none of it holds. All season long, we heard the same recycled explanations. He wasn't ready. He needed to learn. It was just football decisions. Okay, fine. Let's talk football then. If he wasn't ready, why was he trusted late? If he needed to learn, why did the plan keep changing? If it was just football, why did the messaging never match the actions? Because here's the part people don't want to confront. The decisions didn't just stall development, they created damage. Young quarterbacks live on rhythm. Reps build confidence. Consistency builds growth. And what Shedeur got instead was whiplash. 1 week, it's patience. Next week, it's urgency. One press conference, it's silence. Another, it's vague praise with no follow-through. That's not development. That's confusion. And fans felt it in real time. You could hear it in the questions. You could see it in the reactions. Because when the explanations keep changing, people stop believing them, not because they're emotional, but because they're paying attention. Then the NFLPA grades drop, and suddenly everything clicked. Dead last. Worst in the league. A C- that wasn't close. That grade wasn't about play calling or schemes. That was about trust, communication, leadership. That was players, grown men, saying, "This didn't make sense to us either." Think about that for a second. The same locker room watching these quarterback decisions every day voted the coach out at the bottom. Not the media, not fans, the players. The ones in meetings, the ones on the field, the ones living with the consequences. So when people say, "It was just football," I push back hard. Because football decisions don't leave locker rooms fractured. Football decisions don't create this level of disconnect. Football decisions don't result in players quietly telling you who they wanted under center and then watching something else happen. And now, after all of that, we're supposed to believe the praise. Now he's wired right. Now he has the makeup. Now he's getting better. So I have to ask it, and I want you asking it too. If he wasn't ready, why praise him now? If he was wired right, why sit him then? If you believed, why did you wait? That's the part that feels like a slap to fans. Because we watched the doubt pile up. We watched the narrative shift away from football and toward character. We watched a young QB absorb pressure that never needed to be there. And now we're being told it was all love behind the scenes. No. Love shows up in reps. Love shows up in commitment. Love shows up when it's uncomfortable. This isn't hindsight bias. This is accountability arriving late. And that's why this chapter matters. Because once you stop accepting the excuses, you start seeing the pattern. You start realizing the frustration wasn't imagined. The confusion wasn't random. The anger from fans didn't come from nowhere. It came from watching something that didn't add up. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Because the next part of this story isn't about blame anymore. It's about what Shedeur did when the noise got loud, and why his response might be the most important detail of all. And this is where the tone changes. Because while everybody else was talking, Shedeur Sanders was doing something far louder. Nothing. No tweets. No subtweets. No cryptic likes. No, my side of the story interview. Just silence. And in today's NFL, silence gets mistaken for weakness. People assume if you're not defending yourself, you must be guilty of something. If you're not clapping back, you must not have anything to say. But that's not what this was. This wasn't avoidance. This was discipline, because Shedeur knew exactly how this would play out if he spoke. The moment he responds, the narrative flips. Now it's, he can't let things go. Now it's, see, this is the maturity issue. Now it's, this is why coaches don't trust him. It's a trap we've seen before, and he didn't step into it. Instead, while clips were circulating and debates were heating up, Shedeur was out in the community, showing up at schools, talking to kids about grades, about focus, about listening to their parents. No cameras chasing controversy. No soundbites trying to win the internet. Just action. That contrast matters more than people realize. Because leadership isn't always loud. Sometimes it's choosing not to react when you've every reason to. Sometimes it's letting your work speak while others rewrite history. And that's the part nobody wanted to talk about because it doesn't fit the drama cycle. This is a young quarterback who had every excuse to be bitter, benched, questioned, spoken about late, and instead of turning that into noise, he turned it into growth. Film room, conditioning, presence, quiet confidence. We've seen quarterbacks fail this moment. We've seen guys get consumed by the narrative. We've seen potential derail because the response became the story. And that's why this matters, because Shedeur chose the harder path, the slower path, the one that doesn't feel satisfying in the moment, but pays off later. The loudest statement he made was saying nothing. That's not a slogan, that's reality. And when you zoom out, that silence tells you everything about his character. He understands the long game. He understands perception. He understands that respect in this league isn't demanded, it's earned over time. That's why this chapter hits different. Because now, it's not just about talent. It's not just about arm strength or reads or footwork. It's about who you trust when things get messy. It's about who stays steady when the room gets loud. And Shedeur didn't flinch. He didn't chase validation from a fired coach. He didn't need public praise to feel secure. He kept his head down and kept building, knowing that eventually, football has a way of exposing what's real. This is the moment where belief starts to form. Not hype, not blind loyalty. Belief in the arc. Belief that this wasn't wasted time, it was preparation. Because if he can handle this part with grace, if he can stay composed here, then what happens when the opportunity finally lines up? That's the question everything starts pointing toward now. This is the chapter where everything flips because what felt like damage is about to become fuel. Moments like this don't end careers. They define them. Every quarterback who lasts in this league has one of these. That stretch where the noise gets loud, the trust feels thin, and the path forward isn't guaranteed. And the ones who make it, they don't crumble here. They sharpen. That's where Shedeur Sanders is standing right now. Because once the dust settles, once the clips stop looping, once the excuses fade, what you're left with is a quarterback entering the most important phase of his career with clarity. No confusion about where he stands. No illusions about who believes in him. No wasted energy chasing validation that never mattered. That's dangerous in the best way. Whether it's in Cleveland or somewhere else down the line, this moment becomes the reference point. The line in the story where people look back and say, "That's when it clicked." When patience turned into confidence. When preparation finally met opportunity. We've seen this movie before. We saw it when people questioned Jalen Hurts' ceiling, when they wondered if he was the guy or just passing through. We saw it when narratives lagged behind growth. And then one season, one stretch, one opportunity changed everything. That's why fans stay invested. Because football isn't just stats and standings, it's arcs, it's belief. It's watching someone weather the part most people never see and come out steadier on the other side. And this is where patience matters. Not blind patience, not excuses. Real patience, the kind that lets development breathe. The kind that allows quarterbacks to be young without being written off. The kind that understands growth isn't linear, but it is inevitable when the work is there. Shedeur has done everything this moment asks of him. He stayed quiet when it was loud. He stayed focused when it was messy. He stayed grounded when it would have been easy to react. So here's the prediction, and I'm saying it with my chest. This controversy doesn't follow him. It fuels him. It becomes the foundation, the chip, the reminder, the stretch of tape where he learned exactly who he is in this league. And when the opportunity finally lines up, when the reps are real, when the evaluation is honest, people are going to act surprised. They shouldn't be, because the signs have been here the whole time. This is why narratives flip. Not overnight, not with one throw, but with consistency, composure, and timing. And right now, the timing is lining up. So I want to hear from you, not surface-level takes, real ones. Does this moment push Shedeur forward or hold him back? Do you believe patience pays off in today's NFL? Or does the league move on too fast? And if you're in that locker room, who are you trusting when it's time to choose? Drop it in the comments. Not for clicks, for the conversation. Because this chapter isn't the end of the story. It's the start of the one that actually matters.